Ethiopianism was a religious cum social movement that existed in some parts of Africa during the colonial period. This movement emerged out of shared political and religious experiences of Africans under the dominant European control. This movement that was highly practical during the 18th and 19th centuries focused on challenging the notion that Africa had no history before the arrival of the European colonizers. According to E.A. Ayandele, one of the focus that helped in the creation of Ethiopianism was the activities of European missionaries in Africa. He stated that the African followers of these European missionaries were not comfortable with the European missionaries' inability to analyze the Bible with truthfulness. In his documentation, he wrote, "They looked into the Bible for portions that would seem to justify their nationalist thinking. The verse that became most popular was Psalm 68, verse 31, which states, 'Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God.' This they interpreted to mean that Ethiopia would at some time in the future date become the cynosure of the world, the territory which the rest of the world would learn of wonderful human achievements." The movement tend to equate Ethiopia to Africa and Ethiopians to be the Negro race. This was the origin of the West African Ethiopianism. This movement also existed in the Southern and Central African regions. Followers of Ethiopianism argued that African nations was one of the oldest continuous civilization in the world, and they claimed that one of the first examples of organized religion or religious festivals and assemblies started in Ethiopia. In the 19th century, when Ethiopia happened to be one of the few African nations that were not under the European control, the members of this movement embraced Ethiopia as evidence of the Negro capacity to rule themselves. In the South African region, Ethiopianism was very popular as well. A good number of the churches that blacks were established were founded under the idea of this Ethiopianism. This movement was well associated with violence as well against white dominance activities. Ayandele went ahead to document that this movement were believed to have a hand in the 1906 Bambata rebellion in the Natal region in South Africa. There was as well an extremist followership base led by Enoch Nginjima in Bulhoek, South Africa. Enoch claimed that he had a dream that the British and African whites in South Africa would be crushed by Africans. His followers came to believe in his supernatural powers. He defied government's order to pull down the huts which had been built by his followers on crown land, which they had no permission to use. This led to the white-dominated government in South Africa to send soldiers to them in 1921. In the Central African region, this movement was as well believed to be involved in the Chilembwe rebellion of 1915 and the Tuku rising of 1921 to 1922. The Chilembwe rebellion was led by John Chilembwe, who was trained in the United States. On his return to Nyasaland, which is the present-day Malawi, he founded his own mission, named the Provident Industrial Mission. And in 1915, he organized a rebellion against white settlers. The same thing can be said in the Kenya area about Harry Tuku, who organized some disagreement and rebellion against white settlers. There was also the Simon Kimbangu issues and disagreement in the Congo region. In one of our videos in the past, we've handled extensively the Simon Kimbangu uprising. Some notable black people or some notable black leaders as well associated themselves to this movement. Some of them were W.E.B. Du Bois, Francis Elan Watkins, Paul Lauren Dumba, Marcus Garvey, Edward W. Blyden, J.E. Castley Harford, Martin R. Delaney, Henry Highland Garnett, James T. Hawley, Alexander Grumel, and others. These movements and their activities played a very important role towards encouraging nationalist activities in most parts of Africa. The Ethiopianism contributed greatly towards the high pressures put on Europeans, which later resulted in the decolonization of most African countries. Please, if you're watching us for the very first time, please subscribe to our channel and click on the notification icon so that anytime we drop a new content, you will be one of the earliest persons to be notified. Please share our contents, comment, contribute, and if you ask questions so that collectively we can discuss the African history in an objective capacity. Thanks for being part of this channel.